State of the Nation speech by the president, we're talking to none other than a man who speaks his mind, calls it like he sees it, Ken Jiru of the Uungwana Initiative. I tell you, Ken calls it every time. And Ahmed Kraj Aiden, you say, we need able-minded leaders like Njiru, Kweli, Weni Uungwana. Eric Nyaga says, politicians and scholars alike have chosen money instead of wisdom. Ken Jiru addressed that. Aiden Dwale, maybe not that one. It doesn't look like him in the picture, but it's saying, why not bring D to debate Jubilee apologists? Kenyans are smarter than this. Well, I did ask D to come on the bench, and he said, maybe next time. What do you do? So, a good friend of mine sent a message. He doesn't want to be mentioned, but I'll say his message. He says, in as much as I like Ken Jiru's campaign, he's got to know that he's picked an unfortunate term, useni, to characterize bad behavior. It's a term used by racist colonialists to most negatively describe blacks. Why should we buy into that ourselves? Message. Carry on the campaign, but change the term.
Well, first of all, let me talk to that last question of the term.
Yes.
By the way, you will not believe it. The days of ufungamano, myself and a gentleman, a friend of mine, we took the word ushenzi to ufungamano, and I remember, in fact, Kibuta Kibwana himself, then used to be a co-convener, saying in the plenary, that word. In fact, he told me, that word is it's very. He was asking, can you get a lighter word? And we did consider it. In fact, we had taken the term with a friend of mine called Ken Wige. And can you consider using a lighter term? But I'm convinced beyond a reasonable shadow of doubt, so many years later, that there cannot be a better term to describe a person who rapes an 80-year-old grandmother, or a woman for that matter, or a 3-4-month-old child. You know, it may have been used by the racists, but I use it purely in its descriptive term as is used in the Kamusi. And it simply means bad behavior, backwardness. And in any case, maybe they had seen something that we are still seeing today. But I don't even want to go into that. What I want to say is that it is such a fantastic descriptive term. And over the years, it has actually percolated. And it manifests itself every time. Yes, it's ushenziness. Backwardness, primitive. I mean, what do you call a person who just spits from here until there? What do you want to call him? Sini mshenzi. Kabisa. Na ukimwambia don't spit, anauliza mate ni yako. Or the one who rapes his 80-year-old grandmother. His relation. Yes. Parents who today, I mean, there's so many cases in the newspaper. Incest. You know, the type of corruption we are seeing. It's ushenzi. It's ushenzi. It is. Yes. And what about the stealing that we're seeing every other week, Ken? I mean, the scandal after scandal, whether it's NYS or Youth Fund or you name it. Isn't that ushenziness? It is ushenzi. In its totality, it is ushenzi. But one thing I want to say, and I alluded to it, Jeff, is that the stealing culture has become so ingrained in our national psyche that it is now almost normal for a thief to even get rewarded, like I said, with electoral posts, with positions in the church. Nobody really cares. You know, zamani, in African tradition, and that is why we need, by the way, to look backwards. You know, many times we start talking about this corruption like there are things that have come, nameli. In African tradition, if you are a thief, nobody married into your family or agreed somebody to be, for you to marry somebody. Because you're a family of thieves. You are a family of thieves, and you bring a bad seed. So where did we go wrong? That's why we still have these conversations. Wrong? We don't even need anti-corruption EACC. By the way, I'm told a very interesting thing. Some government officials went to Singapore, and when they landed there, they asked, so what do you do with corruption? Where is your equivalent of EACC? They asked them, EACC? Yeah, ethics and anti-corruption. They said, we don't have it. Because they don't need it. Because they live their values.
This
Because
is
they
Singapore.
have a, Singapore.
Lee Kuan Yew's country.
Lee Kuan Yew's country. I mean, think about it, Jeff. You have a police force, you have laws. Yet they will not be implemented when you steal. So we form a decoy and call it ESCC and put billions into that decoy instead of putting billions into schools and education and health.
Yeah.
Simply because people who are elected won't do what they're supposed to do. So what do? We look for ways out, a way out, creating structures that have never been seen anywhere in the world. Commissions upon commissions.
And when they come up with reports, nothing is acted on.
I mean, why did we need Nyachai to be watching over elected leaders? Oh, you're not doing. Oh, you are doing.
Yeah.
Oh, you are not doing.
Like a headmaster.
Like a headmaster. I mean, we need to drill down into who we are. That sense of identity.
Yeah.
And you know, there is a historian who once said that one of the key things that these developing countries have to resolve is an identity crisis.
Do we have that, Ken?
In fact, let me put it this way, if I may just quickly go down that route. He talked about 6 political crises: an identity crisis, a distribution crisis, an integration crisis, a participation crisis. I think there was an authority crisis, authority and integration crisis. When you look at all those, through the Constitution, we've dissolved the distribution crisis. We're talking about how much money we're sending out. We've resolved the penetration crisis. Now government goes down to the roots. We've tried to talk the participation crisis. That's why we're talking about youth and women and 2/3. We have tried to talk to. In fact, there are 2 crises that are still hanging that we've not talked to. One is one of authority, and the other one is identity. We still don't know who we are, and that is why, Jeff, you see our children sagging because some American is sagging.
Yeah.
Some of us think we are Germans, others think we are Portuguese, others think we are whatever it is.
Others think we're American rappers.
You are American rappers, so that our kids are growing up just confused.
And people don't know why. You're speaking of sagged jeans.
Yes.
People don't know why the Americans wore those jeans.
Yeah,
The meaning behind it.
The meaning behind it.
But we ape them.
We ape Rastafaris. Ja Rastafari.
Yeah.
Just because you saw something on the TV. You saw Bombman.
Right.
I mean, who are we? And as long as, even in your private life, Jeff, if you don't define who you are, then you operate on the level of monkey see,
Monkey do.
That's why we create nothing. All these cameras are important. These lights are important.
Yes.
This glass most probably is important.
Yes.
Everything here is important. Why? Not because we can't make these things, but because we are operating broadly on a level where we don't understand ourselves. The suits we are wearing, Jeff, these are important suits.
They are.
It's an Italian suit. Why can't our people stitch them? But you know what? The other day I took a trouser to a friend of mine who does some amendments. I said, do this trouser for me. Oh, my friend, you should have seen what he did. And so when I asked him, now, why did you cut up this trouser? He could not see what the problem was.
He couldn't.
No.
The problem was yours.
A sense of consciousness. Do we have it? Let me tell you, Jeff. If you think about the human being, think about a person's face. I look at your face. What I see is a person who's fearfully and wonderfully made. Symmetry. If I cut it half, where you have left eye and your right eye is half. Your nose really. I mean, God took time to create you.
Yes.
And they could have just formed a physical being.
No.
And left out the consciousness part. But we all know, even religion tells us that we can walk on water if we have enough faith, if we know who we are. But Africa does not understand who we are. That is why, even in Bomas, we had to bring in thousands of other constitutions, cut and paste. You know, sometimes I used to wonder, when America was writing theirs in Philadelphia,
right,
in
1776.
Yeah. They didn't have piles of constitutions.
No.
Today, Britain does not have a written constitution. They operate on conventions, who they are. To this day, because they know who we are, who they are.
And yet here we are, 5 years into our new constitution, Ken, and we want the whole thing scrapped, most of us.
Yeah.
We want a new one, because this one doesn't work.
Oh, it was a cat. I told you it was a wildebeest. It was a wildebeast.
Is there hope, Ken? I mean, is there hope going forward?
No, there's a lot of hope.
Huh?
Oh, there's a lot of hope. Let me tell you, Jeff, I keep saying each and every Kenyan citizen is a seed of greatness. What we need is to fan that flame in that Kenyan, old or young. What we need is to transform our thinking. What we need is a cultural mold that starts getting us to start asking yourself, who am I? What we need is for everybody to start asking themselves, what contribution have I made? Let me tell you again, if you go to the traditional society, nobody used to eat if you don't join people in the farm. But today we have people sending you SMSs from the village. Nitumie kitu.
Every day.
Yes, every day. You meet grown-up people even in towns, people who technically are looking well to do the first thing they tell you is Bonywa.
It happens every day, Ken.
Every day.
And you wonder, this person is able-bodied.
Yes.
He can work, she can work.
And let me tell you, and I have, you know, I talk to many young people. I tell them, my friends, who doesn't have a job here? They all lift up their hands. I tell them, just go to Marigiti market in the morning. Go at 3 a.m. Because I'm sure at 3 a.m. they're either drinking or sleeping.
Yeah.
At 3 a.m. you find shows in the market. And by about 8 a.m. they have piles of money. I know old women who bought plots in this town from selling food because people must eat. But you know what? We have an education system that basically just drives you to sit down and say, naomba serikali, naomba wazazi. A sense of entitlement that is misplaced.
We lost our way, Ken.
In fact, there's a gentleman called Tracy, I think, who wrote a book called Something for Nothing, where what we are constructing systematically is a nanny state. You want the government to come and put nappies on you
and dress you up.
And by the way, I stand by this, that if people put their hands to the plow, as the good book says, God rewards you. But we don't want to put our hands to the plow.
No.
You want others to put their hands to the plow. Coming back to this question of communities, I have always talked about the Asian community. B talks about exclusion. The Asian community, if you look at the jobs in this country, they don't even care. No, they don't care. How many governors do they have?
None.
None. How many times have they been the president?
0.
The only person who was trying the other day was Kamlesh Patton.
Yeah.
And it is constitutional right. But one thing I'll tell you about the Asian community, like them or hate them, they work and they work very hard. Very, very hard. They think and they think very hard. Restaurants, industries, hotels.
Yeah.
So that come the weekend, as I'm counting my shillings to go to Busia, they are in the US for a holiday.
Correct. Or Dubai.
Or Dubai.
And yet,
How
3
many
generations ago, they weren't even here,
Let me ask you, and I want Kenyans to ask them this to ask themselves this question. How many Asians have you seen in slums in Kibera? And it's not because they don't have problems, but their culture, their socio-cultural mold is fundamentally different. Nobody gives you anything for nothing. And by the way, that's not to say they don't have problems. They have problems.
Sure.
They have problems.
Major.
The other day I saw an article, again on one of the newspapers of an Asian, 2 Asian fellows who are living on the street. The next day they had picked them up.
They were gone. They were off the streets.
They were cleaned up.
I saw that.
They were given jobs.
And yet us?
We call them packing boys. Like the streets ever begot any children.
Shenziness.
Ushenzi. And I'll use that word liberally, ushenzi.
I will help you.
By the way, somebody had even gone to the national cohesion to say that I'm pushing hate speech. Ushenzi is hate speech.
Come on.
But they looked at it and said, look, this is a word.
Yeah.
And I will stand for it.
And it is what it is.
It is ushenzi.
And you are who you are.
Yes, yes, yes. And by the way, I don't propagate ushenzi. What I propagate is Uungwana.
Correct.
But ushenzi is just the antithesis
Yes.
of Uungwana. So I have to put it here. And by the way, in all my talks, what the feedback I get is people come back to me and say, you know, Jiru, what you have just said, I have never looked at the things that I do as ushenzi. And by the way, I can tell you, Jeff, I have talked to over 600,000 people in this country. Across the country, Mombasa, Kisumu, halls full of about 2,000 young people. And by the time we are through with them, some of them come up to me. I remember one young man who came up to me and told me, Bwana Jiru, as I was coming for this talk, it was a talk that is organized by KEPSA and funded by the World Bank. I knew I was going to die. Nikamuuliza kwa nini? He tells me I'm an Islander. I was in a gang of 6 people. 4 had been shot by the police. I didn't know how to get out of it. What you have told me, no person has ever told me in my life. Software. And today I meet the young man. By the way, the young man is doing business. Another one invited me the other day here in Westlands. He was launching his entertainment company from saying he doesn't have a job.
So it's possible.
We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and I'm excited to be in Kenya at this point in time. Absolutely. And to the young people in this country, I'm saying, look for the gifting that God has given you,
and don't wait for handouts.
Look at the Kalenjin community, the people who run, because they're the ones who've inspired us to run. These days, I'm seeing Moshiri.
Yes,
I would like to see Onyango.
Absolutely.
And Mwangwala
and
Mohammed running. After all, there's Mohammed running for Britain.
Yeah. Mo Farah.
And let me tell you, those guys, you know, the other day I was giving a talk to the Elgeyo Marakwet county assembly members, and I give them a joke I usually give. You know, I say, it's not a joke, actually it happens, that when the Kenyan runners run and win, and when they are asked by the commentator, how did you do it? Of course, they have their Kalenjin accent.
Yes.
Because they don't talk English like us.
Correct.
And they say, I ran, and Paikot I won. And then the MCAs on a light touch told me there's another one.
Yeah.
There's a guy who won, and he was asked, so how did you do it? He says, I looked behind, no people. But you know what? We may laugh, but you know what? That guy comes home with 15 million shillings
in his pocket.
Hajaiba. Hajaiba pesa za dawa.
Na ataenda kukimbia tena.
We see their houses all over.
Yeah. I look behind,
no people. There are no people. That is how what? Lakini 15 million shillings ziko wapi? Hapa.
Wadhudha.
Halafu mtu anasema marginalized. Let me tell you, and I said it last time.
Yes.
You are marginalized if you agree to be marginalized.
In your head.
It is in your head. Nobody marginalizes
Okay, let's take a break, come back, talk about the state of the nation tomorrow. The president, what's to expect? Anything new? Any new goodies? Let's think about it.
Okay.
Any new goodies, anything to expect moving forward? And we have an election a year and change away, Ken. A year and change away.
Yeah.
Are we going to be all right? Think about it. We'll take a break. At Uungwana Kenya, at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag Uungwana with 2 U's. I tell you, folks, when Ken Jiru shows up, you know we're talking sense right here on JKL, live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski. Gonna take a quick break, come back. Plenty more coming up. Don't go away. We are back in a moment.